So, dear students, I welcome you to my class, and I'm really happy to meet you, though online. Our today's topic of discussion is translation. The subtitle, Construction, Deconstruction, and Reconstruction. Our course title, Translation Studies, Theory and Practice. So translation is a practice-based skill. You have to know the theories for controlling yourself as a translator. So control is essential for the translator because as translation is a process and it's a science also, it requires a translator to be strategic. And translation requires lots of things to be considered very seriously. Because doing translation is a great responsibility. While you are translating a text, you have to maintain 100% sincerity, dedication, honesty. If you deviate yourself from honesty, then your translation may be otherwise. It may be a different text, which is not proper or which is not a justice to the source text. So translating a text is a great responsibility. It's a job which requires a lot of perseverance, a lot of hard labor, a lot of intellectual capacity. While you are translating a text from one language to another, it is usually believed that you are a master of those two languages. You can feel the pulse of different layers of language. So translating is a very challenging job. And I think you can understand while you read a translation of a prominent, good, renowned translator. Suppose in Bangladesh, you will find some prominent translators. For example, at present, Khaliquজ্জামান Ilyas, a very, very prominent translator in our country. Then Dr. Fakhrul Alam, he was the professor of the Department of English, Dhaka University. And even Syed Shamsul Haq, who died only a few years back, he was also a great translator. Dr. Shamsujjaman Khan, who was once DG, that is Director General of Bangla Academy, he was also a very good translator, very great translator. Professor Kabir Chaudhary, he's no more now. He was a professor of the Department of English, Dhaka University. He was also a great translator. And at present, you will find some young, promising, energetic translators like your chairperson, Dr. Muhammad Shamim Mandol. He's a very good translator. He has translated a good number of seminal texts of English literature or English language texts. You have also heard the name of Muzaffar Hussain. He's also a translator. He translates from English to Bengali, and he's alliterative. And some of his books, originally in Bangla, have been translated into English. And translation is very essential for our country. Why? Because we want internationalization. You have no chance to remain unfamiliar, untouched, unaffected by the thoroughfares of the present world. You have to embrace the pulse of the present world. You have to internationalize yourself. You have to know what the other parts of the world know. You have to exchange your feelings, ideas, knowledge with the other communities of the world, other nations of the world. And there are more than 5,000 languages in the world at present. It's not possible for a single person to know all these languages. But we want to know each other. We want to enrich each other. So we need translation. Translation, you may call translation itself a bridge language. Its task is bridging. It bridges one language with other language, one text with other text, one community of people with other community of people. It creates bilateral relationship between two diverse cultures. So translation is essential. Besides, you know that our curriculum or our syllabus or the courses that we offer in different universities, if you think of the utility of these courses, you will find that all these courses are designed in terms of the demand of the job market. So you are learning translation studies. You must not think that it is a wastage of time and wastage of money. Actually, the money that you have spent or you are going to spend for learning this course is a kind of investment. So why? Because nowadays, internationally, the demand of translators is increasing. Just think of different sectors. For example, tourism sector. For example, international trades and commerce. Without a translator, these sectors cannot run well. Tourism is now flourishing. Even in our country, we want that our country must be visited by the tourists from different parts of the world. We also want that our intellectual resources, our historical resources, resources from our heritage and culture should be known to the international community, because we want to be familiar with everybody. We want to reach everybody. We want to enrich ourselves. So we encourage tourists to visit our country because we have World Heritage sites We have the largest mangrove forest, the Sundarbans. We have the longest sea beach. We have many historical sites which are unique in architecture and importance. So we want that tourists should come to our country and visit these precious and distinct places. Now, the tourists who come from different other countries do not know our language. But we know that English is the lingua franca, international language. So they know English, and we also know English, but they do not know Bengali. We know Bengali. So we can work as translators. We can work as interpreters. So translation is the necessity of the present world. It is the necessity of the present world. And nowadays, many organizations are appointing translators, especially in some specialized sectors. For example, in hospital, in medical sector, in commercial sector. People are hiring translators. And lots of texts are being translated every day. And these jobs are being done by lots of translators. And they are highly paid employees. So if you are a good translator, you can earn a good amount of money. Because nowadays, translators are earning money. Because translation, the job of translation, is now taken up as a profession. In the past, it was not chosen as a profession. Especially literary translators were the most neglected people in our country. Suppose I have translated some books, but I got no single penny. I earned nothing. But I spent my valuable hours, my days, my months, my years. And I have translated fictions, I have translated non-fiction short stories, essays, interviews. But I did not earn even a single penny. So why? Because I did not take it as a profession. But nowadays, this job of translation is being taken by many people as profession because people, some specialized sectors need translators, professional translators, and translators are highly paid people. So I think if you study this course and practice, practice and practice, and season yourself through practice, you can be good translators and you can earn a very good amount of money. So take this course seriously and try to be translators. You can choose this option of becoming translator in future. So anyway, at the very outset, I would like to say only a few words regarding your course, and then I will switch to my core of discussion, today's discussion. You have theories. You have the theory of John Dryden. You have the translation theory of George Steiner. You have the translation theory of Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak. You have the translation theory of Jacques Derrida. You have also the translation theory of some other prominent theorists in this field. So you have to learn all these theories, and you have to learn the history of Bible translation. And uh, the most important thing is that only learning theory. So you have to know theories, but practice is more important than theories. Remember, if you want or if you decide to become a translator, then I will request you to practice more and more. You will learn theories. Theory may help you to be mathematical, to be well guided. For guidelines, for guidance, theories are essential, but practice is more important than the theoretical knowledge. And I will discuss all the theories one after another. So I think you need not bother about theories because I will try my best to simplify different theoretical terms and theoretical nuances. So don't worry, please. Okay. As it is my first class with you, I just like to let you know what translation is and why is translation necessary and what is the positive aspect of translation and what different thinkers think about translation. Are they supporting translation or not? If they support, why support? If they're not, then why not? So these are the things I will discuss today as it is my first class with you. And during my discussion, if you find anything confusing, immediately let me know. And you may question me. You may also want to know more uh, about the things that I discuss. So don't hesitate to question me. When you start questioning, you start learning. No questioning, no learning. So I want that our class should be interactive. I will speak, you will listen to me. You will also speak, I will listen to you. And if I have question, I will question you. And if you have question or questions, you will question me. And I think if our class is interactive, then we can learn uh, lots of things. I do not know everything. You do not know everything. But while my knowledge will interact with your knowledge, then I think we will develop confidence in what we have learned or what we know. So, anyway, I do request you to be very frank, to be inquisitive, to be reasoning, argumentative. So, argumentation is essential for developing new knowledge and new ideas. Anyway, come to the discussion. I like to draw your attention to the screen. The slide that you find on the screen is about the definition of translation. What is translation? So translation serves as a gateway to intercultural understanding and apparently appears to be more than an inter and intra-semiotic semantic transfer of the basic information. So translation, trans means change, change of language. or change of medium. So while you are changing one language, from one language to another language, then we call it translation. And translation is usually done for intercultural communication, international communication, intercommunal communication. So translation is a gateway to different cultures, to different aesthetics, to different epistemology, to different knowledge system or cognitive system. And Jacques Derrida, a very famous philosopher, famous for his deconstruction theory, Jacques Derrida says that translation is possible and at the same time impossible. And he terms translation much more complicated than merely a direct transfer of language. So translation does not mean only the transfer of language. Translation is much more than this. Now, what is that more thing? I want to answer to this question. So translation does not only mean the transfer of language. Translation means transference of meaning from source language to target language. And it engages both linguistic and cultural processes. So here lies the challenge of translation. That is, translation does not only mean the transfer of language, it also means the transfer of meanings. Now, what is meaning? I think, the meaning, the definition of meaning. Meaning is arbitrary, very arbitrary. It is never fixed. And meanings are not the inherent property of the words. Meanings are usually imposed upon the words. And meanings are constructed in terms of the context, in terms of historical realities, in terms of power dynamics, in terms of economic dynamics, aesthetic dynamics. So meanings always change. The meanings that you use today may not be acceptable after 100 years to the generation surviving them. So meanings differ from one time frame to other time frame, from one community to other community, from one place to another place. So meanings always keep changing. And this is one of the biggest challenges of a translator, that you have to grasp the proper meaning of the source text. Source text and target text. I think you have to know the difference between source text and target text. For example, you have decided to translate Shakespeare's Macbeth into Bengali language. So Macbeth, which is originally written in English language, is the source text. And the translated text that you prepare is the target text. So the meanings that you find in Shakespeare's Macbeth were constructed during the time of Shakespeare. That is nearly 425 years ago. So after 425 years, many meanings have changed. So while you are translating Shakespeare's text into your language for your readers, you have to think of, or you have to assess the variations of meanings. So while doing the translation, you have to consider the language. You have to know the meanings of the language, or of the words, terms, and terminologies also. So translation means the transference of language and at the same time the transfer of meanings. And meanings are very arbitrary. And that's why while you are translating, you have to be an extensive reader. of the context of the source text, of the historicity of the source text, and at the same time, you have to know the context and historicity of your time, of your audience, of your readers. And if you can align your time with that time, that is the time of the source text, then I think you can translate faithfully. So faithfulness is very important. Why should the readers believe you? Why should they think, or why should they presume that you are translating the text properly, or you are conveying the meaning of the text properly to them? Why should they believe? You have to develop that very confidence among your readers. And how can you do it? You can do it by developing your specific and distinct skill in this very job. So translation is also a semiotic process. Semiotic means semeion, sign. It's a linguistic term. So translation is a semiotic process. And this process usually involves both anthropological, anthrop means human beings. Anthropology means knowledge about human beings. And ethnological, ethnology means the knowledge about culture. So while you are translating a text, you have to know the anthropologic location of the text and ethnographic location of the text. If you can't understand it properly, your translation may be misguiding. So translation requires your profound and extensive knowledge of language. Not only that, a good translator is also a historian. A good translator is a good reader of culture, a good reader of anthropology. So you should have the competence to feel the pulse of the time in which the source text was written and in which the target text is produced. So the job of translation is a very challenging job. Now, translation does not mean adaptation. Remember, sometimes we are confused regarding adaptation and translation. Sometimes we call adaptation translation and translation adaptation. This is wrong. Adaptation is different. So, what is adaptation? It is the freest form, often used for plays or poetry, altering culture-specific references to fit the target language's culture. So, in adaptation, we do not usually care the cultural references or specific references. We enjoy a bit bigger freedom, larger amount of freedom in adaptation. We are not very much faithful to the source text. We can alter, we can change as per the demand of our audience. This is not translation. So adaptation is a kind of deviation from the original or from the source text and source culture. And you can add your own interpretations, own perspectives in adaptation, which is not usually acceptable in translation. Now you may question me regarding the types of translation. If you think of the content, or if you think of the nature of translation, then you will find these 8 categories of translation. That is literal translation, free translation, literary translation, audio-visual translation, specialized translation, then interpreting, then transcreation, and localization. So, what is literal translation? Literal. In Bangla, we usually translate it as akhorik onubad. That is word for word translation. You are just translating the word, just writing the meanings of the words. This is literal translation. And free translation, this is another kind of translation. And it's also called sense for sense translation. Sense for sense translation. So, what is sense for sense translation? That is, you do not put much emphasis on the exact meaning of the words or terms and terminologies. You are just guessing the meanings of the words in terms of the context, in terms of the demand of your readers, and you are translating. This is called free translation or sense for sense translation. Then literary translation. Suppose you are translating a literary text, for example, a piece of poetry. So you have to maintain some basic rules while translating a literary text. You must maintain rhetorical techniques or rhetorics. You have to maintain some rules of rhymes and rhythms. You have to know different kinds of verses. And you have to know different ornaments of languages. And suppose the text is very much ornamental. If your translation is not ornamental, then it may lose its authenticity or credibility. If you want to make your translation credible, you have to reflect all these rhetorical treasures of the source text in your translation. Then audio-visual translation. Audio-visual translation, suppose you are watching television. You are enjoying the dialogues of the characters. And at the same time, you are enjoying the scene on the screen. And you are translating. Suppose you are watching a Hollywood movie and you are translating, just sitting in front of your TV set, and you are translating the cinema into your language. This is called audio visual translation. Or suppose the speaker is speaking in French language. The audience do not know the French language, they know Bengali. So you are listening to the speaker and translating French language into Bengali language. So this is audio translation. That is, you are listening and translating. And video means you are watching and translating. Then the specialized translation. Specialized translation. Suppose you are a student of English department. If I give you a medical text and ask you to translate, I think it is not an easy job for you because medical science has got some specific terms and terminologies that you do not know. It is not in your vocabulary. So while you will go for translation, you will face troubles. So for specialized translation, we need a specialized translator. Now, interpreting. Interpreting means you are reading a text and you are translating it into other language. And while you are translating, you are adding your interpretation to it. This is called interpretation or interpreting. And the other is transcreation. Transcreation is a specialized process of adapting content like marketing slogans, ads, or video games to a new language and culture, focusing increasingly the original's emotional impact, style, and intent rather than a literal word for word translation. That is, you are not translating our text word for word. You are considering the cultural focus. You are also considering emotional impact. You are considering other involvements or engagements while translating. So that type of translation is called transcreation. And last of all, localization. This is another kind of translation. Suppose you are translating Macbeth for your modern day audience. So you can modify the character of Macbeth and make him fit for your audience. This is called localization. That is, you are domesticizing or you are localizing a foreign text through translation. So just think of the power of translation. It can do diverse activities. It can even change the tone and mood of the source text. It can deculture a text. It can also reculture a text. So reculturization, deculturization can be done by translation. So anyway, we learned just the kinds of translation from the perspective of content. Now from the perspective of language, that is linguistic perspective. Translation is basically of three kinds. Interlingual translation, intralingual translation, and intersemiotic translation. So what is intralingual? Intra means self. Suppose you are translating Charjapad, which is written in ancient Bengali. You are translating Charjapad into modern Bengali language. This is called intralingual translation. Then interlingual, that is translating from one language to another language. You are translating an English text into Bengali language. This is called interlingual translation. Then intersemiotic translation. Semion means sign. So translating verbal signs into a non-verbal sign system, such as turning a novel into a film or music. Intersemiotic. Suppose you read Podda Nodir Majhi. It's written by Manik Bandyopadhyay. And you can also enjoy a film, Podda Nodir Majhi, which was directed by Gautam Ghosh, a very famous film. So a text of fiction is translated into a film. So we can call it intersemiotic translation. I think by now you have learned the definition of translation. You have also learned different kinds of translation. So now I like to put a very common question. It's a very common question which visits our mind while going to translate a text. So it's an ethical question, very ethical question related to the job of translation. Is translation possible? By this time, I have mentioned lots of ingredients which are related to translation. That is culture, anthropology, knowledge system, cognitive capacity, then emotion. So lots of things I have mentioned which are related to translation or the job of translation. Now, one very common question visits our mind. Then is translation possible? As translation is engaged with lots of diverse things and it seems very challenging, then is translation possible? It's a very common question that visits our mind. I think the answer to this question is not easy. The answer sways just like a seesaw, that is this way and that way, this way and that way. Possible, impossible, possible, impossible. That is, translation is possible and translation is also impossible. This is not what I say. This is said by Jacques Derrida, a very famous French philosopher, thinker, and an exponent of deconstructionist theory. Jacques Derrida has said in his famous essay, "What is a relevant translation?" This is the title of his essay. In this very essay, he has said that, as a matter of fact, I do not believe that anything can ever be untranslatable or, moreover, translatable. So, what do we discover from what he has said? We discover that translation is both possible and impossible. We can translate, we cannot translate. So why? Why is translation impossible? Or why is translation possible? He has mentioned that while translating a text, two things are to be considered with seriousness. Number one, property, and number two, quantity. So property and quantity, these are the two aspects that are to be considered very seriously by the translator. Now, what is property and what is quantity? You may question me. I will answer to this question very soon. Jacques Derrida believes that property and quantity are just like a debt, a reed, and this debt can never be repaid. This debt can never be repaid properly. That is, you cannot repay this debt. And he suggests that relevant translation is a good one that nevertheless hides the violence of trying to tame the foreignness of the original text, which can never be truly and fully translated. So here lies the impossibility of translation. That is, while translating a text, you should have a very good knowledge of quantity and property. These are like debt that cannot be repaid satisfactorily. Now, very common or logical question: what is property and what is quantity? The answer to this question is property refers to the quest for the most appropriate, proper, or right word in the target language to represent the source text. It is the search for the most accurate synonym, the closest semantic equivalent that fits the context. A relevant translation attempts to be the most appropriate. So relevant translation must be appropriate. So what is appropriate? That is, the translated text must be faithful to the source text. And this proper, that is the appropriateness of the text, of the translation, is called property. And what is quantity? Suppose you read a sentence with 10 words. You read a sentence in 10 words, and you are translating it in 30 words. So this is not a good translation because you are not economical in your use of words. So while you are using words, you have to have the sense of limit. That is, how many words are appropriate for translation. You must have this knowledge. Otherwise, your translation may be misguiding. So while using words, while selecting words, you must be very much calculated. So at the very inception of today's lecture, I told you that translation is just like a mathematical job. It's a science. So while you are choosing words, you must be economical. For translating 10 words, you should not use 30 words. Or for translating 10 words, you should not use 3 words. So you must keep balance between these two. And it's a difficult job. Derrida argues that it's a difficult job. It's a very, very challenging job. You may fail and you may not fail. If you fail, then translation is impossible. And if you pass, then translation is possible. So whether translation is possible or not depends on the translator's skill or dexterity. If he successfully translates by maintaining these two qualities, that is property and quantity, then it's a successful translation and translation is possible. But if you can't align your ability with it, then it is not a successful translation. So translation is also impossible. So now, what are the challenges of translation? I think you have already got some ideas about challenges of translation. Now I have exhibited some challenges of translation for you, more comprehensibility. Challenges of translation. The most challenging task of translation is to grasp the arbitrariness of the meanings. So, at the very preamble of my today's discussion, I told you that meanings are arbitrary. Ferdinand de Saussure, who is popularly known as an exponent of linguistics, told that meanings are arbitrary, whimsical. The meanings that you accept today may not be accepted by tomorrow. So meanings are arbitrary. Meanings are not the inherent property of words. Meanings are usually imposed upon the words. So meanings change as the context changes. So while you are translating, you have to consider the factors responsible for changes of meanings. If you can do it properly or rightly, then you are successful. So meanings are arbitrary. And this arbitrariness creates another challenge for the translator. So what's that challenge? A kind of space between the source text and the target text. This is called, in the language of theory, spatiality. Space, a gap As meanings change, it creates, or the meanings create gaps between the source text and the target text as the situations, as the contexts change. So a translator must negotiate with that very specialty or that very space between the source text and the target text, or parole and lang. Whatever is walking inside your head is lang, and whatever you are delivering through your verbal projection, this is called parole. And what you say is not exactly what you planned to say. So there is always a gap that is called a space or a specialty. A translator usually works in that very space. Even a critic of literature also works standing at that very space, a space between lang and parole. Okay? It's a very challenging job. A good translator can negotiate with these aspects or ingredients, but a bad translator is quite unaware of all these nuances. And the most challenging task of a translator is the bridging between these two. So there is a gap that I have already said between what it means and what it expresses. And you are in the middle. So your task is bridging. So how successfully you bridge depends on the success of a translator. So a translator is successful if he can successfully bridge these two. If he can't, he's not successful at all. So translation is a challenging job. Now, another question crosses our mind at the very inception of our discussion. Is translation political? Every writing, far or less political. You believe it or not, every writing is saturated by the context. Every writing is guided by the context. Every writing is shaped by the determination or determinism of the writer. So every text, especially as we are discussing translation. So translation is also political. If we go back to the colonial history, you will find that the colonizers, British colonizers, translated many of our local texts into their language, that is their English. And some Portuguese colonizers, Portuguese merchants translated the local text into Portuguese language. The French businessmen who came to this subcontinent during the British colonial era or before the British colonial era, they also translated some of our texts or some of our epistemic materials into their language. So why? The British colonizers translated our text to eternalize their hegemony, or to make their hegemony upon our people eternal or permanent. So in this way, we find that translation is highly political. Okay. Anyway, translation has got many challenges. Translation is political. Translation is possible. Translation is impossible. So after knowing all these things, or after discussing all these things, we come to a final question. Then do we need translation? So it's a very logical question. Translation is a difficult job, I have said, very challenging job. It requires lots of perseverance, lots of time, lots of dedication, sincerity, and honesty. So it is not an easy job. then is translation needed? Even if translation is a challenging, very, very challenging job, do we need translation? It's a very important question, logical question. The answer to this question is yes, we need translation. We need translation. So why? Because translation is crucial for effective, accurate, and culturally appropriate communication in a globalized world. It is said that we are now living in a borderless world. There is no border because time is now psychological time. Border is now psychological border. Relationship is now mental relationship. Suppose you are here, and while you find that your Palestinian brothers and sisters are brutally killed by the Israeli army, then you feel for them. Oh, they are killing my brothers. They are killing my sisters. They are killing humanity. So you feel for them. So we are living in a world of telepathy. It's a telepathic world. Even the person who is living at the farthest corner of the world may be very important to me. I may feel for him. He may be my brother. He may be my ideological brother, my religious brother, my political brother, my intellectual brother. So I feel for him or feel for her. So we are living in a borderless world. And in the borderless world, mutual comprehensibility is the demand of the day. We want to understand other people. And that's why we need translation. And translation has the power of transcending the bourgeoisie boundaries of languages and cultures. We have boundaries of language. I do not know Urdu language. I do not know Portuguese language. But if a Portuguese text, if a French text, if a Latin text is translated into Bengali, then I can understand it. And if a Bengali text is translated into Latin, then the Colombian readers will understand it. Sorry. So we need translation because we want to know each other. We want to enrich each other. We want to feel for each other. Now, we are towards the end. I will not tell upon your passions. Translation is needed. Translation is essential. It's a difficult job, but it is very crucially important for us. Then is there any person who speaks negative about translation? Yes, there are some people, and these people are not ordinary people. They are famous people. They are intellectually very renowned persons. So there are some people like this. They do not support translation. So why? Because they think that translation is not a faithful picture of the source text. And in translation, there is always something missing. And Plato is one of these people who think that translation should not be done. So Plato opposes translation because he believes that it distorts reality while it translates things into verbal forms. That is, while you are translating, you are distorting the reality. This is believed by Plato. And there is another philosopher from Germany, I don't know, from Rome, There is Italian philosopher. His name is Benedetto Croce. Benedetto Croce says that if the translation is beautiful, it is not faithful. And if the translation is faithful, it is not beautiful. And that is, a beautiful translation is not possible. If you call a translation good, it means that you have fabricated it, you have colored it, you have made it subjective. So there is manipulation in your translation. And Benedetto Croce calls translation paradoxical and unpredictable lady. If this lady is beautiful, she is not faithful. If she is faithful, is not beautiful. So he sounds like an anti-feminist. Okay, so he said it jokingly, not seriously. So girls, please do not mind. This is Crochet's argument. He has said this jokingly. And I think this kind of joke about our sisters, about our mothers, should not be done or should not be cut. Okay? So, anyway, we can just modify it. We can say that if the translation is beautiful, it is not faithful. If faithful, not beautiful. This is said by Crochet. So just think how negatively they apprehend regarding the credibility or authenticity of translation. Then another philosopher, German philosopher, Wilhelm von Humboldt, argues that if you change the word, you change the thought. That is, while you are changing the word from English to Bengali, from French to Bengali, or from Bengali to German language, you are changing the thought also. And while you change the thought, this translation is not acceptable. This is not faithful or credible. And not only Mr. Humboldt, but also Martin Heidegger. I think you know this philosopher's name, existentialist philosopher. And he says that Greek language and Latin language cannot be translated properly. Terms and terminologies of these two languages cannot be appropriately translated into other languages. If you translate, then there will be distortion. So thus he discourages translation. So anyway, there are many people who discourage translation, and there are many other people who encourage translation. So translation is in between. That is to be or not to be. And my position is that I want that, yes, we should translate. Yes, of course, there is always something missing in translation, but something is better than nothing. We want to know each other. We want to enrich each other. And that's why translation is the easiest and most effective gateway that can serve this purpose of knowing each other and enriching each other. So this is all about my lecture. Now I like to listen to you. Please, if you have any question, you may ask me.